Good evening. This is This Week Tonight with John Irvin on Geno TV. And this evening I have Danica Connors. Danica, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Danica is an herbalist. What other?
I'm an herbalist specializing in helping people with Lyme disease and their co-infections. I'm also a shamanic practitioner, and I use that in the same vein, helping people with Lyme and co-infections.
Now, on Nantucket, of course, Lyme disease is a huge issue, and Danica runs a interesting kind of a support group or talk group over at the Athenaeum. Tell me a little bit about your purview of what's going on the island with Lyme disease.
Well, more and more people are coming forward with the understanding that even if their tests come back negative, that they have an issue. That one of the things that we talk about is chronic Lyme. And there is a camp that says there is no chronic Lyme, and there is a camp that says there is chronic Lyme. In my practice, I see and deal with people who have chronic Lyme, or what I would consider to be chronic Lyme, on a regular basis. More and more and more people are coming out in that venue because of it. That, or they've had challenges with traditional Western style medicine, things like antibiotics. So they're looking for different options and ways of taking care of their health. So I'm seeing that more and more and more. We're also seeing, with Lyme right now on the island, different ways of thinking about how people want to try and control it. And this is controversial because we have a gentleman from MIT who is presenting to this island the idea of genetically modified mice in order to combat this. The concept is mice have been discovered on this island that have naturally started creating their own immunity. Their own immunity to the spirochetes themselves, which cause Lyme, or what we know as Borrelia burgdorferi. They have also started coming up with a natural immunity towards the saliva in the tick. So when it bites, everything in that tick gut doesn't get in. The concept is that they're going to isolate this, and this natural modification that seems to be happening in nature, and inject it into white-footed mice and let them loose on this island and see what happens. There are a lot of, in my opinion, pros to that and cons to that.
Now, briefly, what are some of the pros, what are some of the cons?
Well, one of the concepts is you can actually genetically modify against the saliva of the tick bite. So that means everything in that tick's gut in one fell swoop. Borrelia burgdorferi, any of the co-infections, things like Babesia, Bartonella, which are the two big ones that we see here, Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, Miyamotoi, anything. If you modify specifically against that, then you're hitting with one little thing an entire fell swoop of pathogens that we're dealing with. The other thing is that it's a natural, they're not making something out of completely nothing. They are taking something that Mother Nature is actually providing for themselves. My issue with that in different ways is Mother Nature and that mouse and the ticks, they all have a symbiotic relationship as well.
A certain balance.
And how that adjusts takes years and years and years of modification.
Yeah.
So when we take just one isolated thing like that and inject it into a tick, and that's speeding up a whole bunch of processes that has no modification, no natural modification. Do we understand the ramifications of what that is?
I would guess not. Yeah.
Do we understand the ramifications of releasing a genetically modified mouse onto the population of the wildlife that eats that? We don't. There's no way to really know what that is.
Yeah.
So there, and also, in my opinion, with Lyme, it is more about us controlling us. It's not about us controlling the spirochetes or the parasites or the bacteria.
Kind of us discovering ourselves.
Yes, because it's our own inner terrain that is either strong enough or imbalanced enough to allow any of those pathogens to go forward unchecked. If we eat incorrectly, if we don't get enough sleep, if we're not exercising, all of a sudden they have an opportunity. We have to think about the fact that there are many, many, many people who actually have tested positive for Lyme and the co-infections, and they're perfectly fine.
Sure. Now, talk to us a little bit about boundaries.
So one of the concepts that I believe, from an energetic standpoint, because I work in the terrain of body, mind, and spirit,
Right.
I believe that Lyme is one of the great teachers around boundaries. I find that my clients who are suffering the most in a given moment have issues with boundaries in their lives. Boundaries with other people, boundaries with their job, boundaries with themselves.
And evidently boundaries with spirochetes.
Exactly, because what we're really dealing with is the energy around parasitism, if that is even a word, parasitism. So if we allow people to take advantage of us without doing the things that keep us healthy, keep us strong, keep our boundaries in place, then whoop, something runs in and takes over the terrain. So to me, we can keep trying to manipulate the outside circumstance over and over and over, but we're really not going to get to the balance and the lesson of what Lyme and these co-infections are trying to teach us if we don't understand the terrain of boundaries.
Now, something that you had talked to me about last year was the influx of Japanese knotweed and how, you know, again, balance and boundaries.
And that is one of my favorite things, is the concept that invasive plant species come in before epidemics. And we know in the herbal Lyme community, Japanese knotweed is one of our go-tos. And all of us on Nantucket Island, whether you have identified Japanese knotweed or not, have heard about it from one gardener or another. And it is everywhere on this island. We have the opportunity to utilize something like that that is actually trying to create a balance by being here. It's another concept of boundaries, because Japanese knotweed is a brilliant chemical phytoremediator. It helps to take the toxin out of the soil. And one of the reasons why we have as much Lyme as we do is we toxify our soil, which takes our natural, the natural predators of ticks. The birds, a lot of ground birds eat these ticks. If you mow your lawn all the time, you know, this chronic mowing obsession that we have.
And making it green.
And making it green. All of those ground feeding birds, like guinea hens, they eat ticks and they live in the tall grassy
grasses.
Places.
Yeah.
So, and they live also in amongst Japanese knotweed. So if the grass goes, the Japanese knotweed is trying to provide this balance. We learn from it. We look at nature in that way. So we understand how to find it for ourselves.
Well, Danica Connors, I love an interview with you because you're so easy to talk to.
Oh,
you're so full of information. Thank you very much for joining us
for
tonight.
having me.
You bet.